Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, deep into ARM Holding.
Arm Holdings, yeah.
The company, their designs, they're in like billions of devices all over the world.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
We're going to be looking at their business model, financials, future prospects, all that good stuff.
Right.
And we're basing all this on their 2024 annual report. So
All right.
get ready for some real insights into this tech powerhouse.
It's amazing to me how ARM has become so important to, the digital world, but they don't actually make any chips themselves.
Right.
They design the technology, the IP, and then, license it out.
Yeah. It's like they're the architects, right?
Uh-huh.
They make the blueprints, and then everybody else, all these other companies, they do the actual building.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
And their client list is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got Advanced Micro Devices, Amazon Web Services, Alphabet,
Wow.
Intel, MediaTek, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Samsung. I mean, they all use ARM's designs.
It's incredible.
That's remarkable.
So their reach is huge, obviously, but
Yeah.
but what are some of the markets they're targeting, like specifically?
Well, most people probably know ARM from smartphones, right?
Right.
But they're also big in consumer electronics, networking equipment,
Uh-huh.
cloud and data center servers,
Okay.
even cars, automotive applications.
It's crazy to think about how much of our lives, every day is touched by their tech. I mean,
Yeah.
it's our phones, it's our laptops, it's our cars,
Everywhere.
even smart home devices, it's like
Yeah, and we can't forget about the Internet of Things.
the IoT.
Yeah. ARM's a major player in that space, powering all those tiny sensors and microcontrollers that connect, everything, like refrigerators
Oh,
to factory equipment. I mean, it's a market with huge growth potential.
Absolutely. And speaking of growth, ARM's IPO, that was back in September of 2023.
Yeah.
It was a huge deal. They called it the Tech Deal of the Year at the UK Tech Awards.
Big time.
But SoftBank, they still have a controlling stake, right?
And do, yeah.
So how does that affect ARM's ability to, kind of chart their own course?
That's a good question, and it's something that investors are definitely watching closely.
Makes sense.
SoftBank's influence, it could be good or bad.
How so?
Well, on the one hand, their backing gives ARM financial stability and access to resources, but on the other hand, it could limit ARM's strategic flexibility.
So it's like they're trying to balance, the good things about having this powerful backer with the need to be independent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that tension, it's probably going to play a big role in how things unfold for ARM in the future.
Right. And it's not just SoftBank that ARM needs to be thinking about. There are some pretty big challenges and risks within their own business model, too.
Okay, like what are some of the biggest hurdles that they're facing?
Well, protecting their intellectual property is absolutely crucial, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's their designs.
Imagine the damage, financially, their reputation. If somebody infringed on their patents or if ARM was accused of infringing on somebody else's, it's high stakes.
Absolutely.
And the competition is fierce.
It makes sense. Their designs, it's like their crown jewels, right?
Yeah.
I got to protect them. What other risks are they worried about?
Well, another big one is, attracting and keeping the best engineers.
Yeah, the talent war.
Exactly.
It's tough out there.
They need the brightest minds, but they're competing with, the giants like Google and Apple who can offer these massive salaries and perks.
It's true. So how are they going to stand out in such a competitive, talent market?
Well, the report talks a lot about ARM's unique culture, innovation and collaboration. They're positioning themselves as the place to be for engineers who want to work on cutting-edge projects.
Okay.
Projects that have, a real global impact.
So they're not just talking about the money. They're selling, like, a vision.
They're selling the idea that you can be a part of something bigger.
I like it.
Their technology is shaping the future of computing. It's pretty attractive to a lot of engineers.
It is, yeah. Okay, so they've got the IP, they've got the talent, they've got this massive market opportunity, but
Right.
what about the financials? What kind of shape is ARM actually in?
Well, if you look at the 2024 annual report, the numbers look really good.
Okay, good.
They reported an operating profit of $200 million. That's a good sign,
That is impressive, yeah.
especially considering, the global economy and all the uncertainty.
Right. What about their cash flow?
Their net cash flow from operations was $833 million.
Okay.
And get this, they have zero external debt finance.
Zero.
Zero.
Wow.
You don't see that very often.
No, you don't.
It's pretty remarkable.
That sounds like they're in a very strong financial position.
They are.
What's driving these positive results?
It's a few things. Their licensing and royalty model that brings in a steady stream of revenue.
Okay.
They've also been very careful with their spending.
Makes sense.
They have a lean cost structure.
So they're not just making money, they're keeping it too.
Exactly.
That's a good combination.
That's the recipe for success.
But how about their cash on hand? Like, how liquid are they?
Their balance sheet is rock solid. They have $2,494 million in net current assets.
Okay.
That means they have a lot more short-term assets than liabilities, and their cash and cash equivalents balance is $1,925 million.
Wow, those are some serious numbers.
Yeah.
That gives them a lot of flexibility
A lot of options.
to invest in their future, whether it's research and development, acquisitions,
Right.
or even giving back to shareholders.
Exactly.
Speaking of shareholders, let's talk about how ARM is planning to create value for them now that they're public.
Okay.
Let's talk money. Are they paying dividends, buybacks? What's the scoop?
So, looking at the annual report, it says pretty clearly that ARM didn't pay any dividends for the 2024 fiscal year.
Okay.
And like we talked about SoftBank, they still have that controlling stake, so they have a lot of say in those decisions.
So it's not as simple as ARM just deciding, hey, let's give some money back to the shareholders.
Right, exactly. They have to, they got to keep SoftBank happy too.
Yeah.
And the report, it doesn't say anything about share buyback programs either.
Okay.
It's this kind of tension. You see it a lot with tech companies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially the ones that are growing really fast. It's like, do you reinvest the profits to grow even more, or do you give some of that money back to the shareholders?
It's a tough choice. So it sounds like they're focusing on building for the future rather than, immediate payouts.
Yeah, that seems to be the strategy.
But how do they explain that to investors who, they want to see a return on their investment?
Well, the report, it stresses that ARM is committed to putting profits back into the business to, fuel more growth. It's like they're saying, look, trust us, we're going to use this money to make ARM even more successful, and that's going to make the stock price go up.
So it's a long-term strategy.
It is, yeah.
But it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a great position in the market. And the whole semiconductor industry, it's got huge potential.
Absolutely. And you got to remember, ARM's in this super competitive industry.
Yeah, it's constantly changing.
Exactly. To stay ahead, they need to be investing heavily in research and development.
Makes sense.
Exploring new markets, maybe even buying up some promising startups.
Like you snooze, you lose, right?
Yeah, if they don't invest in innovation, they're going to fall behind.
Right.
That's why they're prioritizing reinvestment over, paying shareholders right away. It's a strategic decision. They're betting on the future.
Okay.
Trying to make the whole pie bigger so everyone benefits in the end.
I see. It's a bold move.
It is, yeah.
But there's always a chance it won't work out the way they planned, right?
Of course, there's always risk.
What if the technologies they're betting on, they don't take off?
That's always a possibility. But look at their track record.
Yeah.
Look at their position in the market. The industry itself is growing like crazy. I think it's a pretty safe bet. It's not like they're, just throwing money around randomly.
Right.
They know what they're doing. They understand the market, and they've proven they can innovate.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's go back to their business model for a second. How do they actually make money? It's all about licensing, right?
Yeah, it all comes down to their IP, their designs. They license it out to their customers in two main ways.
Okay.
Licensing arrangements and royalty arrangements.
So like a two-pronged approach.
Exactly.
Can you break down those licensing arrangements for me?
Sure. Think of it like you're renting the blueprints for a building. ARM gives their customers a license to use their IP, the right to use ARM's designs in their own chips. These licenses, they can be for a certain amount of time or even for the life of the product.
And I'm guessing those licenses, they don't come cheap.
No, they can be pretty expensive. Those upfront fees, those are a big chunk of ARM's revenue. But it's not just the initial fee. There's another way they make money. Royalties.
Ah, yeah, the gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly.
How do the royalty arrangements work?
It's pretty simple. Once a customer licenses ARM's IP and starts making chips based on those designs, they pay ARM a royalty for every chip they sell.
So the more successful the customer's chip, the more money ARM makes.
That's the idea.
It's win-win, right?
Yeah, ARM's success is tied to the success of their customers. And because ARM's technology is in so many devices, those royalties can really add up.
Yeah, it's a pretty brilliant business model, honestly. It's like they're collecting a little toll on the entire digital world.
Pretty much.
But was there anything in the annual report, any red flags, anything that worried you?
One thing that caught my eye was the discussion of credit risk,
Okay.
especially when they were talking about trade receivables.
Trade receivables, refresh my memory, what are those again?
It's basically the money that ARM is owed by its customers
Yeah.
for stuff they've already delivered, goods or services.
Right, like an IOU.
Exactly.
So what's the issue with ARM's trade receivables?
Well, the report said that a big chunk of ARM's credit risk comes from those receivables.
Okay.
There's a risk that some customers might not pay their bills, on time or maybe not at all.
That's a risk for any business, right?
It is, yeah. But ARM, they've got some pretty solid risk management practices in place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they look at the financial health of their customers really carefully. They set credit limits. They even put money aside in case there are losses.
So they're not just hoping for the best.
No, they're being proactive about it. And it seems to be working. The report said that the write-offs and recoveries of customer receivables, they weren't really significant. It looks like they have a good handle on that part of their business.
That's good to hear, yeah. So big picture, what are some of the key takeaways from ARM's 2024 financial performance?
I think the numbers show that they're financially strong, they're stable, their profitability, their cash flow, the fact that they have no debt, those are all really good signs. It tells me that ARM is in a great position for future growth.
But it's not all about the numbers,
Right.
There's also like the qualitative side of things. How are they innovating? How are they keeping up with this, crazy tech landscape?
Those are the important questions. And the annual report, it does give us some clues. For example, it talks about their commitment to research and development. They're really focused on creating new technologies that are going to shape the future of computing.
Can you give us some specific examples of what they're working on?
The report doesn't get into too much detail about specific projects, but it highlights their focus on some key areas like the Internet of Things,
Okay.
artificial intelligence, and automotive applications.
Those are all exciting areas with a lot of potential.
Absolutely. It seems like ARM is making some smart moves to be ready for the next wave of tech advancements.
So they're not just sitting back and relaxing.
Definitely not. They know that if they want to stay on top, they have to keep innovating, keep pushing the boundaries.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about their sustainability efforts. They've set a pretty ambitious goal, net zero emissions by 2030.
Yeah, that's a big one.
How are they going to get there?
The report outlines a few steps they're taking to reduce their environmental impact.
Okay.
They're switching to renewable energy sources.
Oh.
They're making their operations more energy efficient.
Okay.
And they're even working with their suppliers to make their whole supply chain more sustainable.
So it's a comprehensive approach.
Yeah, they're looking at the big picture. They get it. Being environmentally responsible is good for business.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just reducing their own impact, right?
Right.
ARM is also using its technology to help others create more sustainable solutions.
Exactly. Like their energy efficient chip designs.
Yeah.
Those are helping to lower the energy consumption of billions of devices all over the world.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It shows how a company can use its expertise and influence to make a real difference globally.
It proves that sustainability isn't just some, nice extra. It's a must-have for any company that wants to succeed in the long run.
So, taking everything into account, how would you assess ARM's performance in 2024? Good year, bad year?
Based on what I'm seeing in the annual report, I'd say it was a good year, definitely. They've shown financial strength, they're committed to innovation, and they're being proactive about sustainability.
But we can't forget about SoftBank. They're still calling the shots in a lot of ways. How do you think that's going to affect ARM's future?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's tricky. There are pros and cons. On the one hand, SoftBank's continued support, that could give ARM some financial stability, some valuable resources.
Well, on the other hand,
It could limit them.
limit them. How so?
In terms of their strategy, SoftBank might not be on board with some of the moves ARM wants to make, big acquisitions, that kind of thing.
So it's really a balancing act for them.
Yeah. Trying to reap the benefits of having this powerful parent company, but also trying to stay, agile, make their own decisions.
Right. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, time will tell.
It's a good reminder that even in business, there's always, uncertainty. But that's what makes it exciting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeps things interesting.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into ARM Holdings, what's a big takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
I think the main point is that ARM is at this really crucial point in their journey. I mean, they're a global leader in an industry that's growing like crazy, but they've got these challenges, right?
Right.
And they're dealing with this complex relationship with SoftBank.
It's a story of ambition, innovation, taking risks.
And like any good story, we don't know how it ends yet.
That's true, yeah.
That's the exciting part. It's up to us, each of us individually, to decide if we believe in ARM's vision, if we think they're going to succeed.
If we want to invest in that, in that journey.
Exactly, yeah.
And there you have it, everyone. A deep dive into ARM Holdings. We covered their business, their financials, the challenges they're facing, their hopes for the future. We hope this episode has given you a better understanding of this incredible company.
They're really shaping the world of technology.
And we always encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, form your own opinions. Because in the world of business, just like in life, the learning never stops.
Well said.